Welcome Under the Moongate. I'm Erin Bagwell, an intuitive medium, awakening witch, and documentary filmmaker. I'm sharing what I'm learning about living from the dead, with stories and interviews to inspire us to find the magic within. And I have such a special episode for you guys today. I am over the moon to welcome Ellen Newhouse to my show. Ellen and I have known each other for about 10 years. I found her through my dream girl journey. She was actually one of my original Kickstarter backers, and we connected over being creatives. And I was really always drawn to Ellen because she has such a deep spiritual presence to her. And when I kind of started my mediumship journey, she was one of the first people I reached out to get advice and to get help. And I had never really heard anybody in my circles talk about their awakening process. And Ellen became such an incredible resource for me. And her story is not only inspiring because of how open she is, but she is also an author, a musician, an actor, a coach. I mean, she really gives in such a complete and full way that I find so inspiring as an artist. And I think as somebody who is always trying to kind of figure out the next thing for herself, I find her journey to explore and see how she can share her gifts so beautiful. I also just want to note at the very beginning of our conversation, Ellen and I jump right in because the day before we are actually part of a really beautiful women's circle and ceremony for one of our friends, our mutual friends. And essentially, we got together to support this person. And Ellen led us in kind of this really beautiful meditation and this ritual. And we kind of jump in talking about that first. So that's kind of top of the show. And then we go into a bit of a political tangent at the beginning about the divine feminine and the divine masculine and kind of how people have gotten bamboozled energetically by this administration. So that's really, really interesting. That's kind of the first, I would say, like 10, 15 minutes of the conversation. And then we go into Ellen's story about how she kind of found her voice, how kind of some of her health trauma informed, being on a spiritual path. And I will also just say, just to note, Ellen talks a lot about her childhood in this episode. She encountered a lot of physical, emotional abuse from her parents, from both of her parents. And so take care while listening. If that's not something you're energetically in the mood for, feel free to skip this episode. I will say, though, one of the things that makes Ellen so powerful is her ability to overcome and to really take a situation which I think in many cases would defeat you, and learns how to rise and work through and not only find joy, but be joy. Ellen is one of the most joyful people I know. So I'm so excited to have her under the moon gate. And without further ado, here is the wonderful Ellen Newhouse. Okay, so where should we start?
Oh my God. We can start yesterday. How were you after that ceremony?
Um, I feel like a changed woman.
I know, I saw that. I was like,
I
oh,
truly do. I feel so empowered by the group and so I don't know. I feel so found.
wow, Erin.
Yeah.
I have goosebumps, girl. Oh my God, my body is just goosebumps. Look
Mm.
at you.
I do. I feel like grateful to have been in the space and you know, we were like Eleanor and I were chatting about it. I don't know, it's so hard I think as a woman, as a mother, as a wife to make yourself center.
Oh my
And
God, yeah.
so I think and I
Mm,
I just loved like bearing witness to that, the power of that of being center. Like I
yes.
think that was
Yes.
so important for me to witness and I don't know, I'm still processing it.
Yeah. Well, it was huge. It was
Yeah.
huge. And it was huge for everybody there. It was interesting because yes, the focus might be on one person, but everybody will get what they need. Everybody.
And I think just seeing what a group of women can do when they come together was incredible.
Goosebumps. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was like, wow, like this is, I kept reflecting on like the idea of church and
mm,
how, like, hypothetically, I was raised Catholic. You go to the church for like spiritual healing, for community, for connection. And I've never felt that.
mm,
I was just like, oh, this is like these are my people. This is, I don't know. I just felt, it felt so beautiful. I truly am still unwinding it all.
yes. And Erin, forgive me. I know I'm harping on you about this, but now I'm going to cry because yesterday is exactly, hun, what your film is about.
Mm,
Exactly what I feel that
yeah.
you're here to do is to really help women to understand their power and help
Mm,
them to understand. I know you're starting with the word witch. I get that. And for me, witch is great, Erin. I've done my makeup and now you're just going to make me cry. It's about the discrimination against women, right?
yes, correct.
And about we chose a word, but that word was about how do we let women know that if they open their mouths and if they use their power, we're going to burn them at the stake. We're going to call them witches.
Yep.
Okay. And this was the way in for the toxic masculine, the unbalanced masculine. And I really want to be clear about that because, when we talk about the masculine and feminine, I think there is so much misunderstanding.
Mm,
And I think it can easily sound like women are against men. And that is the furthest from the truth. And so let that be stated for the record, okay? That this is not about men versus women.
mm-hmm.
This is about actually all of us healing because we all have feminine and masculine within us,
Correct.
right? So if we go up against one whole part of a human being called the feminine, you can call it the witch, I don't care. But both men and women suffer.
Mm,
Because if you deny a part of an entire part of a gender, let's say female, let's say
yeah.
witch, you're denying yourself.
Your own femininity in your own
Exactly.
body. We're just denying
100%.
ourselves. Wow,
Yes.
wow, wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let that just land for a minute,
Ooh.
right?
No, I feel like we hear that conversation in feminism a lot of like, it's for men, but I don't think I've ever heard it so plainly like stripped down of like, no,
Yes,
everyone has these two parts, and when you deny this, you're denying it for everybody. Like, sorry.
exactly. So let me explain for men how this works out. How it works out if a man denies his feminine, he doesn't get to feel.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't get to be in his emotions. He doesn't get to be in his beautiful creativity. He doesn't get to be in his wisdom. Because what the culture says when we deny the witch, when we deny the feminine, is hey, you only get to be in one half of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So stop crying, put those tears go away. We do not do that. We do not feel.
Mm-hmm. And not only do we say hide it, but we say if you let it out, the shame,
Oh,
it's
absolutely. That's what
so
I'm saying. Yes,
demonized. Yeah.
thank you for using that word because that's exactly, I have one of the most kindest and beautiful man as a husband.
Mm,
But he's been brought up in a culture, right, that says don't feel,
mm-hmm.
don't dare think about even being in your creativity.
Yeah.
You just go out, you make money, and you do that well.
Mm.
Don't talk to me about the fact that you're tired. Don't talk to me about what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Just work.
Yeah.
Just be the provider. And he is one of the most feeling guys on the planet. And so he denied himself that until, of course, we met. And then he was like, why am I crying? Why do I cry in front of you? Why am I crying? And I said, welcome to my world, you know?
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, when we first met, it was really, I'm joking about it now, but it was like, wait, what? Like,
Mm.
wait, and there was a lot of moments of confusion because he couldn't understand why he was crying. He couldn't understand what he was feeling. He couldn't understand that I said to him as we got together, hey, what do you really want to do?
Mm.
And he was like, excuse me? And I was like, I don't need you to support me. I want to support you to do something that you love because he had worked so hard. He had varicose veins on the back of his legs because he stood for so many hours of a day to support his family.
Mm.
So he denied his own body. So that's what happens when we cut out an entire part of and I don't want to call it gender because it's not gender. It's a part of the human, right? So
Yeah.
we're all feminine and
Part of
masculine.
our experience.
Right. When we deny one whole aspect of ourselves, we deny it not just for women, but for men as well. And eventually that leads to toxic rage
Mm.
because you're denying all of your feelings and you're shoving them down, shoving them down, shoving them down. Eventually it goes,
I'm having a bit of an aha moment because I feel like when we look at leadership, women have been so trained to step into the masculine, to embody their masculine. And I feel like with my documentary Dream Girl, one of the things that I knew subconsciously was that we didn't have to do that anymore. That the vulnerability and the femininity and even quiet leading or whatever the words you want to use are, it was such an important part to show that femininity, that
yes,
female side of leadership in such a dominated space. And I think the reason that film did so well is because visually, to be able to see the beauty of it and the softness of it
yes,
really carried something in a wonderful way.
yes. And you did it so beautifully. And now I just want to add the next element of that story,
Mm,
which is so women were taught to come from their masculinity to succeed.
yes.
Then the next evolution was, whoa, 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 wait a moment. You get to be in your feminine, in your beautiful feminine, and you get to lead from there.
Hmm.
However, I think what happened in reaction is that there was a whole reaction to only the feminine.
Interesting.
And in order for the next evolution to happen, is the feminine. So if we talk about Chinese medicine, the feminine is the yin, it's internal, it's dark. If you're only in your feminine, there is no masculine to activate you.
Mm,
So now we have to marry the beautiful feminine with that beautiful, healthy, balanced masculine that says, yes, let's go. Let's
yeah.
bring that out into the world.
Allow everything to thrive.
Yes. And that's why we need both men and women. We need
Mm,
both masculine and feminine because left to our own device, if we're only on our feminine side and only on our masculine side, we don't thrive.
Ellen, I think this is your TED Talk. I'm telling you, I feel like this is it, baby.
on record and I'll know what to say. I've always wondered what to say on TED Talk. I've always wondered because I have so much that goes through my
I
brain.
know. Yeah.
Even after 35 years of doing this work, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to
What's
say.
in I know what's important, what do people gravitate towards? I just think that that is such a powerful sentiment and so truly apt. And I think we've so many times I've heard men say, like, how can I be allies or how can I take up in arms and how can I feel invested in this? And like the way you simplified it was just so beautiful and such an easy way for anyone to say, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I don't want to
Okay,
deny this part of myself. You're making it personal.
right. Okay, so now can we dive into really scary waters?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Always.
So now what we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
right now in the United States
Yeah.
is the toxic masculine in action, but I want to give it a real, a wholer perspective. Because my perspective is that when we deny men their feminine,
Mm-hmm.
they don't get allowed to talk about their wounds.
Mm. Okay.
They don't get to talk about what hurts.
Right.
They don't get to talk about how they're afraid. They don't get to talk about what they're scared of. So they stay isolated and alone.
Mm.
And then comes along some men who say, hey, brother, I get you. I get your anger. I get your rage. Come on,
Mm.
come with me.
Wow. Wow, Ellen.
Goosebumps. You get me?
Wow. Yes. Yes. A clear path. A clear path to really anywhere that somebody is willing to go to provide
Absolutely.
being seen. Yeah.
Because why? And I have the most beautiful book. Hold on one moment. People laugh at me. They're like, interesting book, Ellen, but I really swear to God, this is such an important book for our time.
Mm.
It's called Together, and it's written by Vivek Murthy, who is the 19th Surgeon General of the United States.
Okay.
And in it, well, the subtitle is, oh, this book has touched me so deeply. It's called The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World.
Mm.
And he, in this book, scientifically, not just from a woo-woo perspective, but from science, from data,
Yeah.
has proven that what kills people is isolation.
Mm.
What makes people enraged is loneliness.
Mm.
And the way out of that is connection. Now, if you're a man who has been denied his feelings, has been denied the ability to speak about his wounds, and along comes a leader who says, I get your rage. Come with me. We're going to go get this. We're going to get this shit done. You're going to be my brother in arms. Let's get this done. Let's,
Mm.
let's really get that, you'd have to bleep me out. Um, let's get those women that have hurt you. Let's
Mm.
go get them.
Ooh.
Misunderstanding that what they really needed was the space to talk about their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So these men, in my estimation, are being used by men who are beyond wounded,
Mm-hmm.
men who are so enraged that their only way of dealing with their rage is to strike out at the feminine that has been denied them. Do you see the full circle?
Wow.
So there we are. So when I say to people, because people get confused by me, I'm like, all about love. You know that. So when I say, when Donald Trump first came into power, the first office the first time, and it's on my blog. I spent a year sending him love. And people were like, "What? Ellen?" They were like, "What are you doing? Why are you loving on Donald Trump?" Like, I'm confused.
Mm.
And I said, and I will say it again, we are all connected energetically. I understand that his rage comes from a deep wound. So if I spit fire, if I spit venom, if I spit gasoline on his wound, what happens? It just encourages and enables more rage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part A. Part B, given that we're all connected, is that I'm part of the problem. You get this? Okay, if I hate
Mm-hmm.
anybody,
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of the problem.
Mm.
So, whenever I find anybody or anything that triggers that response,
Mm-hmm.
that means I have to do my inner work as part of the whole cosmos, part of the whole collective.
I just want to like put a pin in that because I've heard you say that before. I didn't have a big reaction to your
Right.
sending Donald Trump up because I've heard you talk about it before and I actually think about it all the time because it really, when you first said it to me, I was like, huh. And it really took a lot of time to allow myself the space to see him as a human person who's wounded
Mhm.
because he's inflicted so much.
Right.
And to hear you take it a step further and say, not only are you sending love, but anytime you feel hate, that
Mhm.
you're looking inward. I
Yes.
mean, wow, what a powerful, this is why you're such a huge impact in our meditation group and why I'm so grateful to have you come in and share your divine wisdom because it's just so powerful, the things you know and the things you're sharing with us.
Thank you. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to take a step further.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. So, why do I feel the need to do my inner work
Mm,
around something like this? Because
okay.
I understand that how I vibrate adds to the vibration of the collective. How
Mm,
you vibrate adds to the collective. If I heal my inner wound, and anytime I hate, it's like a flag going up saying, "Oh my God, I have
mm-hmm.
work to do." Okay.
Yeah.
And that goes for any of us.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we are enraged, hate, fear, whatever the response is, that's our work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to keep raising my vibration, not just because it's fun for Ellen, but I understand that I am part of a collective community called the United States. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll go further. I'm a part of the collective of the entire world. So as I raise my vibration by working through whatever is not in love inside of me, then that goes out, that vibrates out into the world.
Mm,
So hear me out for one more minute. It's if we were all 100% healed within ourselves, if we were all conscious, if we were all love, there would be no Donald Trump
mm,
because it couldn't, the vibration would be so high that he couldn't exist.
right.
Or he would scream and we'd all go,
Love
"Mm,
you.
exactly."
No
Right?
problem. Love you.
Exactly. And so it would the hatred would be quickly absorbed and alchemized.
Do you think this thesis of yours, this kind of philosophy that you're
Mhm.
living,
Yeah.
stems from your tumultuous relationship with your parents?
1,000,000%. And I think I've said this to you before, but I'll say it again. My father and Donald Trump are not very different,
Mm.
except for the fact that my father was far better looking, for sure. But I understand Donald Trump because I understand my father.
Mm.
And for anybody listening to this has taken decades and decades and decades of work. I don't want people to watch us and go, well, how did she get there? In a minute. It didn't take a minute. It took decades of working on myself personally.
Mm-hmm.
Took decades of working with people professionally. I mean,
Mm.
being a healer, which I didn't want to be, has helped to heal me on so many levels.
Mm. I feel that.
Because being the healer that I am, or the kind that um, I am insisted upon being by the guides that work with me, it requires enormous, enormous personal responsibility.
I thought you were going to say faith, but I
Nope.
like responsibility. Nope.
Nope.
Say
Because
more about
I,
responsibility.
because my guides have basically said to me, you have no right to sit in the chair you're sitting in unless you're doing your own personal work.
Mm.
And we will let you know all the work, all the time that is required for you to do next.
Mm.
And it's uncanny. And I know it's very purposeful that my patients and myself are not that different. I may be but a second or maybe an inch ahead
Mm.
of where they are, but we are all doing the work. So much so that at times I am, I hear information coming out of my mouth, and after the patient leaves, I'm like, Ellen, note to self, write it down. Because I
That
need,
happens to me all the time in readings, and I'll
right?
channel things and I'll channel information and I'll go, was that for me?
Exactly. Note to self.
I think that was for both of us.
Right. And there is the part of my thesis. We're one in the same.
Mm.
And people don't want to look at that with Donald Trump.
Woo.
I know. I know.
Yeah, we don't. We don't. We want to other it. We want to separate it. We want to feel superior to it. We
Yes.
want to say that's not our, I will say something strange, but my parents' best friends were Republican Trump supporters,
Mhm.
still are, and it's given me such grace
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I've grown up with these people. They've raised me like family. And I think being together, to use your book title, has
Mhm.
really forced me to like reckon
Yeah.
with why do these people who I love, who are some of the most generous,
Mhm.
loving
Mhm.
people, want to walk this path? What is this path?
Yeah.
How did it speak to them?
It's a really good question. And sadly, I do think that there are really, really beautiful people who are being used
Hmm.
this whole play, if you will. I think of Shakespeare often at this time because Shakespeare understood that we are all of the characters.
Mm.
It's not like you're different than me.
Ugh. Title
All
of app. We are all the characters.
We are all the characters, right?
Wow.
And that was the blessing, really big blessing that I got from doing my one woman show.
Mm.
Because so in the one woman show, I play 42 characters in an hour and 25-minute show. No wardrobe change, no makeup change. So it just goes boom, 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 boom. And I had to stand in the shoes and heart and soul of my mother, who is both brilliant and severely mentally ill, my father, who was also brilliant and unfortunately undiagnosed mentally ill and extremely violent. And as an actress, you cannot judge a character. There's no way you're going to be
Mm.
able to fully get in there
Yeah,
if you're
embody.
standing outside judging, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, as my mother's daughter in real life,
Mm.
I couldn't allow her this space for her to be in her psychotic moments. I couldn't allow her to be the woman who was so out of control, so out of sorts that when she stopped taking her meds, she would go down the bottle of booze. I couldn't allow that. I couldn't allow her vulnerability. I needed a mom. I wanted her to be my everything, wanted her to be my example of what I could be as a woman. But my God, when I got to be her, to live in her shoes, to step into the muck, I fell in love with her.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful that I got to do this before she died
Mm.
because it took my judgment off and I got to experience her just as a woman in a time where there was hardly any support. And it was complicated by being Jewish, by living in an extremely affluent neighborhood. There was no support for women who were being abused. So, as an actress, as Ellen the actress, holy cow, I was like, bring it on. And I mean, honestly, I mean, she became so many people's favorites.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that. Like, I completely didn't realize it. And oh, this was so stunning. When I posted on Facebook that my mom had passed away, people were like, Jackie died. Like they had gotten to know her through the
Mm.
show. And they had so much compassion for her that I did not have as a teenage daughter. So, as her daughter, I had nothing but judgment
Mm.
and frustration because I wanted her to be the fighter. I wanted her to be, I was like, you gotta leave him. You gotta get out of here. You gotta do this. And I remember she looked at me one day and she said, Ellen, I do not have the fight you have, but I love that you have that fight.
Mm.
I don't have it within me. And it was, I'll never forget that moment in my bedroom where I was begging her to leave my father. And I was so angry, and rightfully so. I was furious that she was allowing him to continue to hurt me and her, continue to like create this war zone in our house, you know? But she didn't have the strength to do it, nor at that time did she have the support.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful that today there's so many resources that if a woman is being abused, there are safe houses, there are therapists, there are organizations, there are hotlines you can call. I mean, none of this existed in the era that my mother was going through this. So this was happening in the 1970s. And to complicate matters was also being Jewish because there's so much mythology around mental illness and around these things don't happen in a Jewish family. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. It's interesting because it still came from the immigrant experience of having to be better than better just to be average.
Yeah.
You didn't want to show any weakness so somebody couldn't annihilate you.
Completely. Well, it's interesting because it kind of goes full circle back to our original conversation about the masculine and feminine. We've come so far in our relationship to mental health. I know your story because I read your book, and I know that your mother was institutionalized a couple of times
Right.
and, had severe mental health issues. And I know many a women through my second documentary, Year One, who feared being locked up for having depression and postpartum. And so, these stories, these narratives linger so heavily. And it's interesting when we deny people their ability to feel,
Right.
to love the feminine, as we call
Right.
it, then all kinds of crazy shit can happen in society. And it becomes this really toxic, almost playground for manipulation.
Hmm. Hmm.
I would love to give our listeners like a little bit of a background. I know that if I had to, like, you're a healer, of course, you're an artist, you're a creative, you've done so many things, you're a writer.
Right.
I love the story of you kind of starting out and having your guides like get a telephone line. Can you tell that story for people who want to know about kind of the beginning of your woo woo experience?
Oh my God. Okay. So we'll back up. I wake up on one of the most beautiful fall days. You know those crispy fall days, and the sun is hitting the windows just in that beautiful fall way. And I wake up very early, and something feels weird. And I'm laying there and I'm trying to figure out what feels weird, and I can't breathe.
Mm, scary.
It was very scary. But me being me at that time, I come up with an idea. So I smoked cigarettes at the time and a lot of them. And I decide in my inimitable wisdom that if I can light a cigarette up and if I can see the smoke going in and out, then I'm good, right? So light up a cigarette. I see the
This
smoke
is
go in.
20s behavior. I can't breathe. Let me light up and see if that'll help the situation. Sure,
So
sure.
I see the smoke going, I inhale it, I exhale it, I'm good. I'm like, we're good.
Okay.
I get, showered, I get
Lungs are
dressed.
working.
Yeah, the lungs are working. I'm all good. And I put my little tennies on to, walk to work. I walk to work. I get at my desk, I've got things to do, people to see, appointments, and I start jamming in my day. And by 11 o'clock, I had to say, Uncle,
Mm,
something is wrong. I mean, I was like, I mean, it was scary. At this point, looking back, I would say full on trauma response, we're
mm-hmm.
good. We're okay, nothing is wrong. I'm fine. By noon, I was in the emergency room.
Mm,
Now, I had no idea this was the beginning of my healing journey. All I knew was that I was scared to death. I was frightened. I was horrified. I was more scared. I was confused utterly. I wasn't in pain, but I was in emotional pain.
mm,
So, for anybody listening, if that rings a bell, you might be at the beginning of an amazing journey.
mm,
And you might just not know it because often, out of the most hellish moments in our life is when we do the biggest healing. So now looking back, I can tell you, oh my gosh, that was the moment when my life changed. And of course, it would take many years. It would then take the next 5 years. I would go through a massive healing journey. But for the first 2 years, all I did was go from one doctor appointment to another, doing exactly what they told me to do, and nothing was working.
yeah.
So the gift of when nothing works is that we have to find a new way.
Mm-hmm.
I decide I am going to go to God and I am going to get him and we're going to figure this out together. And I'm pissed. I am
Mm.
like, I've gone past my fear and I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And all I
Ring
can,
him up. Ring him up.
right? I mean, God, you get ready. I'm
Yeah.
coming out here, right? And and the only thing I could think of is the image that I had is all my Christian friends who would like pray kneeling at their beds before bedtime, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And in the Jewish tradition, we don't do that, but I have this image. I literally get on my hands and knees and I
Mm.
say this, God, you need to get down here right now. And I wait. I wait because he is going to come down right now and he's going to talk to me and we're going to figure this out, right? And nothing. Crickets. But
Oh no. Not
but I'm
crickets.
not, oh, but I am not deterred.
Mm-hmm.
I am not deterred. And I decide in that moment, I am so pissed. I'm like, fine. I am going to commit to a prayer practice like none other. Like none other. I mean, it became my full-time job.
Mm.
And within 1 month, I was changed forevermore.
Mm.
And today, what happened, many people would be like, oh, yeah, bring it on. But I was horrified. What happened was all the angels were listening,
Mm.
all the guides were listening, and they start channeling through my mind
Mm-hmm.
through voices.
Okay.
Now, this would be okay if I didn't grow up with a brilliant but mentally ill mother who heard voices,
Oh, right, right, right.
who
Mm.
fought with demons I couldn't see.
Right. Mm.
And my whole life, up until that moment, I had been fighting hard to never get her disease.
Wow. So you're perceiving the receiving of information and messages as kind of this invitation or this opening to perhaps your mother's illness.
Exactly. So
Ugh.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, I'm either going down or there's something else. Because in the
Right.
meantime, I don't know anybody who's a channel. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I mean, I'm living a secular world,
Sure.
full on corporate monster, right? Like full
We're
on
at
it.
Vanity Fair. We don't have time to be channeling.
I mean, so in my world, nobody's channeling voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's either mental illness, like the white jackets are coming for me, or there's something else.
Mm.
It is so unknown, and I am like freaking out. But I'm like, well, the doctors can't help. There's nobody I can talk to.
Right.
And suddenly there are voices saying, we can help you.
Mm.
So I made a decision. I was like, well, I may be going down, but if I'm going down, I'm going down big time.
I'm going down with the angels.
Exactly. So I'm going to listen. And not only am I going to listen, but now I'm going to follow what they tell me to do.
I want to back up a little bit.
Okay.
No, when you start praying, making space for spirit in some kind of way
Hmm.
allowed you to get clear enough and in tune enough with something to receive, right? Is that what we think happened?
I wish that were true.
Okay,
No.
tell me.
So it sounded like this. God, you get down here now. God, you get down here now. God,
For a
I
whole
need
month?
you now.
For a whole month, we're yelling?
Pretty much.
Well, I always say you have to ask to receive. So, first
I
step,
mean,
you got to
I
say,
mean,
hey, get down
I
here.
wish, I wish I could tell you. I didn't even know the word spirit. I
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah.
I mean, it didn't,
So you're asking, this is great though. So you're asking for help for a whole
I'm no,
month. You're like
no, I'm demanding. I'm not,
demanding,
I am demanding.
get
And,
down
and,
here.
and I'm expecting.
Okay,
And
great.
that's important. This
We're
is
going to
important
believe. Yes.
because I'm demanding and I'm expecting.
Yes. Let's go.
So that's an important piece
For
because
sure.
often we pray not expecting.
Yes. If
In
we don't
fact,
believe in the transaction is not real.
right, often we pray believing the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. And
That is
we
true.
do not get what we want. We do not get what we need. We get what we expect.
That's a tweetable.
There you go.
Okay, so you're demanding, demanding, demanding.
Yes.
And then how are you receiving messages? You're starting to feel or hear, or what's the.
Okay. So, so, okay. So I'm demanding and I'm demanding. And I'm like, when I demand and yell,
Mm-hmm.
then I sit and I wait,
Mm-hmm.
expecting an answer.
Yes.
And it took a while, but after sitting day after day after day after day, I mean, you have to understand, not only can I not breathe, but I am in so much fear. I am
Mm.
suffering. I mean, the breathing later, I can fully explain as so much anxiety had built up in me. And here we're going to get back to that whole thing because I had suppressed all my emotions in order to survive the war zone that was my home.
Yes.
So again, here we are back at the same conversation. When we suppress emotions,
Mm-hmm.
eventually something has got to give.
Yeah.
So the breathing, had they, I wish on any intake form they had said, have you ever suffered from any emotional trauma? But even if they had asked at that time, my
You
answer
wouldn't have
would have
said
been
it.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
right?
Been
Because
there. I'm
because
fine.
I mean, I had created the story
Mm-hmm.
with my father's help that oh, I was about to give it away, that nothing ever goes on here,
Mm. Title
right?
of first book. Title of first book, people. I'll
Right?
link it in the show notes.
I mean,
Nothing ever goes on here. Wow. Came
and
out.
our whole family had been trained to look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, maybe that's why I don't like makeup. Interesting. Little note, side note there. Um, it was how you looked was most important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so get us back to the apartment.
Okay,
We're angry. We're
so we're
open.
angry,
We're
we're scared,
demanding. We're expecting.
right?
What's next?
And then after days, and let's get close to the end of the first month. I start feeling strange things inside of myself. Like I don't feel
Mm.
like myself. I feel some days when I'm sitting waiting, I can feel something happening to my body that I don't even understand. Like some days I felt like I was walking sideways with or
Mm.
sitting sideways. Like parts of me felt oddly shaped.
Okay.
Um, and I'm noticing what I now could explain as energy moving, but at that time, I can only tell you that I felt oddly shaped.
Okay. Wow. It's so funny. The only time I've ever felt like that is when I was pregnant. The
Oh,
first I knew that I was pregnant with Ginny when I felt like I was walking weird. Like my leg, one leg was like bigger than the other or
right?
something. And I was like,
E-
why do I
Exactly
feel so odd walking?
right. So if we look at my journey, we could say I was pregnant.
Mm,
I was pregnant with what I would birth within myself,
yeah.
right? But I didn't know that. So, okay, so I'm feeling all of these things, and things like in my real life world are weird. I I don't like food anymore. I'm not
Mm,
hungry.
wow.
I I'm odd. I'm just
Yeah.
odd. I'm nauseous a lot. So things
You are pregnant.
I am pregnant, and now that I think about it, it's just like these odd things. So I'm just
Yeah.
feeling odd. I'm
Mm.
having, oh my God, my dream world at that point was on fire, on fire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And thank God I like to write. So I'm journaling everything, right? I'm writing everything down. And then towards the end of that first month, I could feel presence of something other than me.
Mm.
And then one day, I heard like a conversation happening somewhere outside of myself, but it was like, why am I hearing this conversation?
Mm.
And it really kind of freaked me out. I was like, whoa, okay, this is scaring me.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the beginning. This is how it began. So it wasn't this lovely, like, oh, let's channel the spirit. No, this is not how my journey began.
Looking back now, have you gleaned any insight as to kind of how things came to unfold, like with your breathing or, with meeting Jean? Like, how do you feel about the start of it now? Do you have kind of a narrative that you've
Oh
attached
my,
to it or understand it now in a different way?
the main narrative is thank you, thank you, thank you to all the unseen and seen guides, healers, angels, beings of the light, because I was definitely guided. I mean, now I can see it, right? Then all I could see was fear, 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 and more fear.
When do you think it switched over from fear to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the other side of that?
Yeah. So I spent simultaneously to not being able to breathe. So not being able to work, needing to heal. I was married at the time, and my ex-husband at the time said, don't worry about money, just, do whatever you need to do to get better. Was doing the praying, and then all of this is happening. I simultaneously started working with Richard, who I told you about, and he did body energy work. His partner was this fabulous, fabulous, like really big woman who wore like, I mean, her clothes were fabulous. Everything was like just swathed in layers and nothing that I would ever wear, but she was an amazing healer. So I saw them. And then eventually I started studying acting. And the healing of that is one day my acting teacher said, Ellen, we need to do something about this smile. And I was like, what? Now, my smile had opened doors. My father had taught us to smile, smile big for the neighbors, smile at all the people in temple, smile. And I was really confused and I was pissed because I wanted to be a really good actress. And something in me knew I could be,
Mm-hmm.
but I would play. I mean, this is really funny. This is in my one woman show. I would play like angry characters with a smile.
Yeah.
So, as she worked with me to let go of the smile, so much fear
Mm.
started rising up. So much fear. Oh my God, if I thought I couldn't breathe to begin with, I really couldn't breathe now. So eventually she takes me aside one day and she said, Ellen, I really think it would help your acting. And she knew how to get me. She said,
Mm.
you're going to be a great actress. She said, you're already so good. But in order to get from good to great, she said, I think it would really behoove you to get into therapy.
Mm.
Now, up until that point, in my worldview again, Therapy coming out of my family was only for fucking crazy people. Sorry.
You can swear. You can swear.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I didn't know that was allowed. Um,
Yes, yes.
so I was like what? Like she thinks I'm crazy? And I was like,
Hmm.
Carol, I'm not crazy. And she was fabulous with me. She was one of my healers.
Hmm.
Was able to say, oh my goodness, no, one. You're not crazy. You just got pain. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I don't. I just like to smile. And I really couldn't see, looking back at that young girl, I really could not see that smiling was a problem.
Hmm.
She gave me the name of a therapist, and I started therapy. And luckily, this therapist was a spiritual woman, and she was on
Hmm.
her own journey. So she not only began to help me with my rage, that was what was really causing my suppressed rage, I would say, was really my suppressed rage that was on top of enormous pain, trauma, grief, sadness, despair, more despair, like a lot of despair. That's why I couldn't breathe.
Hmm.
So I had pushed it down so deeply and had compartmentalized it away in boxes within my psyche that I had no memory
Hmm.
of what had happened to me.
I'm just reflecting,
Oh,
breathing, taking it all in.
yeah. Yeah. So once I could be given permission to say what I felt, and we started small. We
Hmm.
started with, are you comfortable in that chair? Yes, Ellen. I want you to feel your body sitting in the chair. Is it comfortable? Well, what does that mean? And my therapist would say, can you feel your thighs meeting the chair? And that's where we began. Because I was so disconnected from my body
Hmm.
to survive all the trauma that I was no way near my physical body. And there used to be, I don't know, I lost it somewhere around the way, but there used to be a beautiful, I think it was a comic strip. And anyway, this illustrator had illustrated a person, I think it was a man walking in his spirit, walking in front of him.
Hmm.
And when I saw that, when she showed that to me, I was like, oh, like I got it.
Hmm.
But it took years before I could feel my body. And as I began to feel my body, I began to feel emotions. And as I began to feel emotions, the first feeling was rage and anger.
Hmm.
And so I spent probably the first 5 years of therapy raging in a safe place.
Hmm.
So that's where I began. And it's so hard for people to imagine that who know me now. They're like, what? You are so filled with joy.
You got to release the rage to get to the joy.
Yes. And for anybody, wherever you are in your journey, especially if you're at the beginning of your journey, please, 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 I beg of all my women, please do not judge. Rage is beautiful. It energizes us. It gives us, it's the same energetic band as creativity and sexuality.
Mm,
So the
that
degree,
fire.
right? So the degree to which you'll allow that fire up and out of your body is the
Mm-hmm.
same degree that you will allow it for your creativity, your sexuality.
Mm,
Without that flow of energy, you don't want sex or you want too much. It's not balanced.
mm-hmm. I want to fast forward us a little bit because I know you want to promote your song, and I'd love to play a clip of it for people to listen while we're, chatting.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But what do you want to share with us about kind of the song and how your musical journey came to be?
Well, I think the rage is a beautiful entry point to it
Mm-hmm.
because so so as you know, we had gotten invited to open the one woman show in New York City, which was dreamy. And the date set for it was June 16th, 2020. So you
Mm-hmm.
know what
Mm-hmm.
happened.
We're all nodding. Yep, we're all
Yes,
nodding.
yes. So it was canceled, as was all
The
of life,
world.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was devastated. I had worked on the show for 3 years with my director, who I adore, and I was devastated, but I went silent. I was like, okay, that's fine. That was like my
Mm-hmm.
initial reaction was like, well, thanks for the information, fine. I acted as though it was just fine.
Mm.
And, I think part of it was I understood that it was, I mean, my show compared to people dying was nothing. So there was that understanding of like, oh shit, we have a massive problem going on.
Right.
We've got people dropping dead every single day. I mean, it was at the time when the morgues, the external morgues, remember that, were filling up.
Yes. Yes.
So who am I to feel bad about my show being canceled, right?
Right.
So I was like, I got it. Good. I'm sorry, but yeah, I got it. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. Right after that phone call, I got one of the hardest phone calls of my life. And it is the nurse from the nursing home that we unfortunately had to put my mom in because her dementia from Alzheimer's had worsened so much that she had to be in a lockdown ward. She called and the nurse called and she began crying. And I was like, whoa. I was like, uh-oh, something is real. I mean, I was used to my mother not being well, but when a nurse cries, I'm like, okay, something is really wrong. And I'm looking at Jim and I'm like, and they're like, listen, your mom is really sick. And I'm like, okay, did you send her to the hospital? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, why? And she's not explaining because I don't think she knew.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line was my mother ended up getting COVID,
Mm.
in addition to all the other problems that she has. So, long story short, and this is my mother to a T. My mother was so strong physically. She overcomes COVID physically. It's unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. But what they didn't understand was that COVID had rooted her mind.
Ugh.
Yes.
Oof.
So they put her, and I am horrified because I know my mother so like to a T. I mean, I was my mother's keeper my whole life, watching her, knowing exactly when she was going to go down into a severe depression. So I'm like, oh, I get off of the phone and I said to Jim, that's not a good idea. They decide to put her back on her floor. And by that point, her husband was back on that floor, but they were separated by gender, right? They had the men on one side, the women on the other side. Oh
Okay.
my God. My mother was so pissed because she didn't understand. She didn't understand why Lloyd wasn't visiting her. And I kept
Mm.
trying to explain to her, I'm like, Mom, we're in a pandemic. Now, my mother was brilliant. And she was like, no, we're not. Now, she was child by that point, right? And she's like, why are you not visiting me? I'm sick. I'm like, Mom, there are no airplanes flying. She said, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, oh my God, how can I explain this to her? And then she was like, why is Lloyd not visiting me? I am so mad at him. I'm like, Mom, they can't have him come visit you because you're contagious. No, I'm not. There's nothing wrong with me because she never felt sick. Because
Right.
she was, I used to say to my therapist when I was so enraged by her, I'd say, she will be here to 110 just to bug me. Like, on, because she was as strong as an arse, like so strong, but meant like she never suffered from anything physically, it was all mental
Mm.
and emotional. So they put her back on the ward and she goes and attacks her husband.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah. So they have to put her back on the COVID floor in restraints, my poor mother.
Ugh.
Yeah. And I'm now trying to explain to them what I know about her. And I'm like, listen, I think, yes, she has overcome COVID physically, but it's roto-rooted her brain. Like, are you in touch with what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. I mean, I think at that time, and she was in Connecticut in a nursing home. And for my next book, I had to research what went on in Connecticut in nursing homes. Not good, not good. So she was a tragedy. I do not feel, and this is very different for many, many people, and I understand, for my mother's life, for what she had lived, I feel COVID was a blessing because it set her free from her body.
Mm.
It allowed her to leave. She was so strong, she would have been here.
Right.
And she would have been here, you know.
To what
So
end?
when she died on, interestingly enough, June 10th, 2020, remembering my show was supposed to be June 16th, right?
Mm.
Interesting timing. While I was very sad, I also rejoiced for her because finally she could be set free from this very big journey that she had gone on in her life.
Absolutely.
So after my mother died, here's the through line. After she died, and I was grieving, I went into deep sadness and deep despairing, and I needed a creative outlet. So I
Mm.
began writing poems that could be put to music. And I was working with this beautiful woman who is now a dear friend of mine, who is a gorgeous singer-songwriter named Anne Heaton. Oh my God. Love her music. She's amazing. You should look her up. And then as the world turned back and we all got back into life and she, was going back for a master's degree and getting business, we parted ways. Maybe 2 years ago, I saw somebody, another woman that I know on Facebook who is an actress, writing her one woman show is a musical, and I got jealous. And
Mm.
I love jealousy because it tells us what we want for
Yeah.
ourselves. So I
Sure.
contacted her, said, who are you writing with? She told me, long story short, we've now been writing together. Um, Drew Lawrence and I have now been writing together a little bit over a year. And this first song that just got released called Dream Stealer literally popped out of me. Like,
Mm.
I didn't sit down and say, I want to write about my life. There was so much creativity, like pent up that because I hadn't been writing since COVID, basically, right? Well,
Yeah,
actually 2021, that uh, the moment the door opened and he said yes, and I said yes, it was just like
it was on.
flowing out of me. I mean, I have written in the last year, not even year and a half, 17 songs.
Wow.
I mean, and I fall in love with each one.
Yeah.
And, each one has become my baby. So, and it was interesting because as it became clear that I was going to write an album, even though that was not the intention, I always wondered where I would begin, like what
Mm.
song would be first. And it wasn't a conscious choice, but it makes so much sense to me knowing my journey that Dream Stealer is the first song that was released because it is the journey of a woman. If we don't talk about me, let's just talk about a woman. It's a journey of a woman overcoming incredible hardship. It's the journey of overcoming trauma. It's the journey of finding yourself again after you've gone through, whether it's a breakup or whether you've been through abuse or you fill in the blank.
I think this song is such a perfect song for you because I feel like when I think about your personality and your essence and your aura,
Yes,
you hold joy, yes, but
yes,
through this great emotional abuse trauma that you experience. Like, you're not a happy go lucky person because you had like an easy breezy life. Like, you chose joy, you chose healing, you chose doing the work to
yes.
get to where you are, to release. So I love the song because it's almost like kind of confusing. Like when you listen to it, it's like a bop, but
Yeah,
then it has these dark undertones, and you're like, wait a minute, like,
right.
what's this? And what's happening here? And you swear in it. And it's such a beautiful, I don't know, expression of you. And I think, like, I don't know anybody else who could pull this song off either
Mm, mm.
and
And
holds the truth of it all.
yeah, so what I love about this is I once had a teacher, a meditation teacher, and he said to me, at that time I was really suffering, and he said to me, Ellen, in an open belly, there's room for it
Mm,
all the sadness, all the grief, all the joy, all the hatred, all the love, all the fear, all the joy, all the love. There's room for it all. And that one statement from Stephen Levine, and you can look, he wrote many books. That one statement has been a guiding light for me.
mm.
Because, like you said, I'm not joyous like la da 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 because it's been easy. I've earned this joy, I have earned it, you
Yes,
know,
you have.
and it has come through the portal of darkness. I mean,
Hmm.
honestly, we couldn't talk about the birthing process more. It's a metaphor for birth, right?
Hmm.
And so in the song, I give voice to the anger. I give voice to the fear. I give voice to the despair. I give voice to the empowerment of knowing and owning my power, our power. So I feel like this song is for anybody who has ever struggled to find their voice, for anybody who has ever struggled to stand up to power, and for anybody who wants to fully own and who is ready to own their voice and their power.
I think that's a perfect way to close. I don't think we could end on a better, more powerful note than that. Ellen, I'm so honored to know you. I feel like I receive so much from you. I feel so mothered by you. I feel so seen by you. And I'm just so grateful to have you in my orbit. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your gifts and your wisdom.
And thank you for having me here. Thank you for really seeing me.
Hmm.
I really, you know, I I love how long we've known each other. I love that we've watched each other like morphing our journeys.
Yeah.
And thank you for really getting it deeply, you know.
Mm. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Bet you didn't know after all these years I'd still be scared of the dark. Wrestling demons in my head, my body's branded by your mark. Wishing your words were dead, I'll never be safe in this bed. Dream stealer, love dealer, I can never satisfy. Heart sucker, soul fucker, I was blinded by your lies. My DNA still shows your trace. My DNA still shows your trace. Dream stealer. Whisper deep inside, pull me to my light before my heart was fully erased. Burning red, devil eyes, screaming heroic cries, purple street popping face. Wishing your words were dead, I'll never be safe in this bed. Dream stealer, love dealer, I can never satisfy. Heart sucker, soul fucker, I was blinded by your lies. My DNA still shows your trace. My DNA still shows your trace. My innocence held me strong. I couldn't breathe for so long. Dream stealer.
Under the Moongate is produced and hosted by me, Erin Bagwell, with music by Sal Mastrocola. To get bonus episodes, links to my workshops, and new episodes delivered to your inbox, join me as a Substack subscriber at underthemoongate.substack.com. To book a digital reading with me, submit a question for our Q&A episode, or RSVP to our next live event, scroll down in the show notes to get all the links. And pass the magic along. Share this episode with a friend. It would mean the world to me. Thanks so much for listening.